According to a publicly available agenda, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin hosted a classified conference at the Pentagon to discuss China and Russia's potential pursuit of innovative space weapons. The discussion follows two significant incidents last year. Number 1, Russia's missile destroyed a defunct Soviet-era satellite in more than 1,500 pieces to create space debris, and number 2, China tested a new combination of a fractional orbital bombardment system, also known as FOBs, and a hypersonic glide vehicle, which can be kept in orbit as per the user's choice. According to Admiral Charles Richard, Chief of U.S. Strategic Command, China successfully demonstrated such capacity, which was never before seen in the world. Richard stated earlier this month at the Space and Missile Defense Symposium that the military must immediately rebuild its missile defenses and develop systems to better warn against launches aimed at the United States. "I'm not sure we've really considered the consequences of what that weapon system represents," he remarked. "You're going to see shorter warning times, more difficult attribution, and a greater challenge to our established space and missile defense systems." Defense Secretary Austin, Deputy Defense Secretary Kathleen Hicks, and Undersecretary of Defense for Policy Colin Kahl met with the Defense Policy Board, an influential advisory group of former national security leaders, on September 6 and 7. The board was briefed on the Pentagon's planned space strategy review by Assistant Secretary of Defense for Space Policy John Plumb. According to the agenda, the meeting focused on how China and Russia's potential development of fractional orbital bombardment systems and space-to-ground weapons could impact U.S. deterrence and strategic stability, as well as to consider U.S. response options to any adversary's potential development of such capabilities. The meeting will discuss briefings from the intelligence community on Chinese and Russian space policy doctrine and capabilities, briefings from U.S. Space Command and the Missile Defense Agency on U.S. space and missile defense capabilities, and briefings from the State Department on strategic stability and arms control. According to the agenda, the board provided guidance and recommendations on a classified Pacific Theater-based tabletop exercise. The United States intelligence community's 2022 annual threat assessment cautioned in March that Beijing is fielding new destructive and non-destructive ground and space-based anti-satellite (ASAT) weapons, but did not include the Fractional Orbital Bombardment System, or FOBs. Russia is developing ground electronic warfare and directed energy weapons to counter Western on-orbit assets, according to the report. Russia continues to train its military space elements and field new anti-satellite weapons to disrupt and degrade U.S. and allied space capabilities, and it is developing, testing, and fielding an array of non-destructive and destructive counter-space weapons to target U.S. and allied satellites, including jamming and cyberspace capabilities, directed energy weapons, on-orbit capabilities, and ground-based ASAT capabilities, according to the assessment. While the presence of high-level defense officials at the meeting was noteworthy, analysts say that the reason we don't know much about the Russian and Chinese FOBs and space-to-ground weapons, in part because the Pentagon hasn't made any evidence public. Clearly, the Russians and Chinese are trying to create technologies to circumvent the missile defense systems that the U.S. has been creating, said Caitlin Johnson, Deputy Director of the Center for Strategic and International Studies Aerospace Security Project. "It's difficult to assess what it entails from the public side of things. That, I believe, was the purpose of this gathering." Similarly, Brian Wheaton of the Secure World Foundation, a former Air Force space operations officer, described the discussion as surprising because he was unaware of public evidence indicating that Russia and China are developing space-to-ground missiles. This discussion may be more about the possibility of China developing either of these capabilities and the implications for U.S. national security, Wheaton added. "I find this interesting because, while Russia and China have been concerned for decades about the United States developing space-to-ground missiles, the United States has avoided any serious discussions or suggestions, claiming that these are not actual threats." If you like this podcast, please like and subscribe for more interesting and exciting updates from around the world. Your support is extremely valuable to us to carry on so that we can keep bringing the most important news and analyses that really matters.